Hi, I'm Vanessa Rosenblum, President of Pro REA Staffing, and with me today is my friend and colleague, real estate trainer and coach, Kathleen Metcalf. Hi, Kathleen.
I
Hi. In January, Kathleen and I hopped on one of these calls to talk about real estate business planning for real estate teams, and we got really great feedback on that presentation. If you haven't seen it, I'll link to it above and you can check it out. But this month, I thought it was a good time to talk about communication and specifically how salespeople and administrative people tend to communicate differently and how that can create friction within teams. And there's no better person to talk about this topic than you. And you and I have masterminded about this in the past. So I'm really excited to get this on video.
Yes.
So obviously we're generalizing a little bit here. Not all salespeople and all admins communicate the same way. But in general, what are some of the fundamental ways in which salespeople and administrators communicate differently?
So there are four traditional styles of communication, and some of this is a slang from the DISC assessment. So there are drivers, expressives, amiables, and analyticals. And everyone has all four included in their personality. Some people lean one way or the other, depending on what job they have. I was just telling a client recently, in the 25 years I've been taking the DISC assessment, I've been high in each different score at different times in my life, depending on what kind of job I had and where I was in my life. But what's important about that is that you're supposed to be different. So on a team, there should be a mix of these different kinds of personality strengths, which means that everybody has to take an extra minute to be able to look for understanding with, well, what did you mean by that? Or what do you need in order to get that done for me? Or, how come that was hard for you? And what do we need to do differently next time? So that there's an understanding about that. I also use a couple of different comparisons when I talk to teams too, so they can sort of see themselves in a different light. And there's the traditional fable of the tortoise and the hare, where the agent is usually the one moving kind of fast, and the administrative staff, because they're responsible for so many details, is kind of supposed to work a little bit slower so they can make sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. There's another old fable of a rock and a kite, where the creative person is able to really soar high because they're attached to the team. And so that's also a nice balance, where if an agent really wants to be able to be out there and be with the community and bring in lots of business, they need that administrative staff to be a stable force that works together. So that's also two different speeds. And go ahead.
Yeah, and so when it comes to the way that agent and their assistant communicate with each other, can you offer some examples of what that looks like when you have someone who's moving really fast and someone who's trying to hold on to all the details and cautiously move forward?
Yep. So this is where checklists can really come in handy, so that the assistant is able to look at what kind of information they need in order to go to the next step. And it's where I say to administrators, make sure that you debrief your agent, that you ask questions, that you say to the agent, okay, let me just ask you a few questions to make sure I've got this. So that's also clarifying and confirming to make sure that what the agent said is what you really heard, is what you really understood. And so hopefully you can do that at the time that the agent is delegating something, but it is also possible that as you then get into the project, you may realize, oh, I don't know what this is, and I'm not sure how they want me to handle that. So that's where there needs to be some patience for the administrator to come back around and say to the agent, even if you call them on your cell phone and say, okay, I have 4 questions. Bang, 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 bang. Thank you very much. Okay, ready, set, go. And then go to the next step.
Yeah, I think that's such a key thing. I mean, I know you and I were talking about this earlier. As the person who is delegating and moving really fast, sometimes you think something is really simple and you probably have, at least for myself, sometimes I don't think something all the way through. I just toss it to Liza. And then I have to remember to be patient because she comes back with well, what about this? And what's your time frame? And I'm like, oh, just handle it. But she's absolutely right. Like she can't handle it unless I slow down and actually think through what I need from her. And we get that feedback from candidates when they're placed with an agent who moves really fast. Sometimes they're frustrated because their agent won't slow down to give them that information. So what kind of advice do you give to teams when that assistant feels like they can't get the information that they need to move forward and the agent is frustrated because stuff just isn't getting done? I'm sure you've handled that situation before with your teams.
I do. I do definitely. And one of the qualities of an administrator that agents really appreciate is being resourceful. So there is that element too in the administrator's responsibility, that being resourceful to figure out, well, where else could I get that information? Is there any other resource I could use? So from the administrator standpoint of being independent to find information, that is helpful. And for the agent, of being focused on the quality, that you want quality work to be done. And administrators like to get it right the first time. They don't really want to redo their work. They don't want to do kind of a half job and then have the agent say, oh, that's not what I wanted at all, or that's not good enough. And so they, that's like a little steak knife in the heart to an administrator, because they like to do quality work and do it right the first time. So therefore, if there is a check-in where people are asking questions and getting updates, and there is a clear definition of when is this due and how to prioritize it, then that also helps, because then they can know, how to fit these things in and what kind of stages they can do at different points in their morning, in their afternoon, in their week of whenever it's due.
Perfect. And you touched on something I want to go into a little bit deeper, the stake in the heart. There are times when I think realtors or salespeople or bosses in general say things that don't translate well to their assistant and cause hurt feelings or cause unnecessary stress. Can you touch on some of those and how changing that verbiage just a little bit might really help smooth the waters in their office?
Yes, you and I were talking about coming as a boss, coming to your support staff from a positive place with the assumption that they have done their best and they want to do quality work. If you come to the administrative support staff with, why didn't you get that done? How come that took you so long? I can't believe you missed that. Ooh, those cause rifts. And they also communicate a lack of trust that they do good work, a lack of trust that they would keep their word, a lack of trust that they don't have your back or that they're not loyal. And those are sometimes wounds that administrators don't bring up to their boss because they don't even know how to talk about that. They don't even know if that's appropriate to talk about. So they just sort of take that. But what it does is begin to disintegrate the relationship, and it starts to spiral the other way, which in my work with teams, sometimes I can salvage. And if there has been too much of that, sometimes I can't salvage that. And the relationship begins to unravel.
Yeah. So let's give a positive example. So let's say it's 10 o'clock at night and the agent doesn't think something was completed that needs to be completed. And so they're frantically sending a text message to the assistant. How should they handle that so that the outcome can be as positive as possible?
So if the agent sends a text message that says, hi, Sally, or hi, John, whoever the assistant is, I know you probably told me this, and I know you might have gotten this done, but in the morning, could you give me an update about, this, and this, because it's on my mind. That makes an assumption that everything's probably fine, but I'm still worried. Or if something did get missed, then the 10 o'clock text could say, hey, Sally, hey, John, I noticed, in the file or in the email, so-and-so didn't get finished. First thing in the morning, will you please, make sure this is handled and then let me know.
Great. So that's a segue to talking about closing the loop and providing updates so that both sides don't have those. So we don't have 10 p.m. texts, right? So talk about best practices around closing the loop.
So there are so many different styles of doing this. It really depends on the kind of systems that you have in your office. So there are teams that use the electronic methods, and software and programs that are available. So if you have transaction management software, or you use Evernote, or you use Asana project management software, or you use Wunderlist, some people just use email or use a Google Calendar of what was the priority, what were the priorities for the day, and then what got accomplished. Other people just talk about it, that there's a call at the end of the day, that there's a voicemail message left that says, in these transactions or with these clients, here's what got done today, and here's some things that I'm following up on tomorrow, so that there is some form of completion. And this is where, if assistants ask questions of the agent, but they don't go back and close the loop to give them what happened, that's where agents stay worried or wonder, and that's where sometimes those 10 o'clock at night text messages come from.
Right. And I think this is where assistants have such a great opportunity to start managing up and managing their boss, because if they will take the initiative to close the loop and send the end of day email, then they start to take control over the communication, and they're able to stay ahead of their boss because they're organized and they're on top of it. And they have and I don't like the voicemail thing, because I think having a paper trail is really helpful, because that way you can go back and say, yes, I told you on this date that this happened. I mean, for the assistants watching this, this is how you're able to take ownership and cover your behind and start to take a leadership role within your position in the organization. And I think where this starts to fall apart is when the agent doesn't respond. Right. So if your assistant is sending you these end of day updates, you need to at least say got it, or ask one question. Let them know that you saw it. Otherwise, it becomes meaningless. Right.
No, it's meaningless. Right. And so this ties into those 3 phases of learning of an administrator, that in the beginning of their career, they're following a system, and then they go to manage the system, and then they're leading everyone through the system. And if an agent wants their administrative support staff to take initiative and to be a leader, then this is what it looks like to be a leader, but it also takes that partnership with the agent, that they've read the summary, that they've responded to it exactly. And then the administrative person can get ahead of the curve to be able to say to the agent too, remember that you have a listing appointment tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And we have that, blog post due by Thursday. So I need you to edit what I sent you, and it's in the drive. So that is a wonderful service. Since you and I both have that from our own staffs, we know that we can appreciate that.
Absolutely. So are there any final strategies that you feel that teams can employ to make sure that both sides are heard and understood, and to bridge that gap between different communication styles? Is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you want to make sure we touch on?
Yeah, one of the things is at a team meeting, whether you have them weekly, more times a week, whether you have them every couple of weeks, to have an agenda where everyone on the team has a voice. Not only to talk about what's going on, because team meetings are not just about exchanging information, but they're an opportunity to bring up what were some patterns that they see going on, what are some issues that are going to impact the business, where are they having challenges that are repetitive, so that if everyone on the team is a part of the agenda, even takes a turn leading the team meeting, that there's an opportunity not just to work on the transactions, but to also work on the business together, to keep making it more efficient. That's where there's really an opportunity for people to be heard collectively. And if agents have one-on-one conversations with each member of their team, at least once a month, maybe every couple of months at the most, to be able to say, how is it going? How are we doing? What do you need? Is there anything else? Makes an enormous difference to the administrative staff to really be able to be heard.
Fantastic. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity just to share with everyone what you're working on. Tell us a little bit about your training program.
So REA 101 is a dream come true. I have wanted there to be a training program for agents and assistants who are working together, whether they're new working together or they're being cross-trained, that's online and on demand. So we have a total of 13 modules that are all kinds of different topics. And in fact, on my whiteboard behind me is more brainstorming for our live Q&A webinar sessions that go along with it. So we have everything from a real estate office and listings and pendings and marketing, lead management. And then we also have information for agents about how to manage in our Keep Calm guide for better communication.
I love it. I'm so thrilled that I'm able to send people to you for that resource. And for those of you who are watching, if you are an assistant or a job seeker in the real estate industry, please check out prorealestatejobs.com for all of our open positions and other positions that we've pulled in from the web. And if you are a potential employer looking to hire, please visit us at proreastaffing.com. We'd love to help you find your next hire. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Take care.